Before I start this video, the first thing I want to say is if you want a shout out, comment down below, subscribe, say that you subscribed, say you liked the video, and in the next video we'll shout you out. So let's get started. Now obviously, title of the video, I'm going to be explaining the situation the Washington Wizards are in and personally why I think they shouldn't be overlooked. So the first thing I'm going to do before discussing their offseason moves, what situation there is, why I like them, is put context into this situation. What was the Wizards' position going into the offseason? So after the 2019 and 2020 concluded, they finished with a 25-47 record, placing 10th in the Eastern Conference. They had a 16th ranked offense and a 29th ranked defense. There were a lot of young pieces inside of this team like Ryo Hachimura, Troy Brown Jr., Mo Wagner, etc. And then there were also some bigger questions about John Wall. Is he healthy? Bradley Beal, does he want to stay? Or is he going to potentially be traded to some type of contender? So that was the whole situation going into the offseason. Now, going more towards the present, the Wizards' first offseason move was drafting Deni Avdija. And I thought this was perhaps one of the best draft picks for any team in the entire draft. Deni Avdija was projected to go 4th, maybe 5th or 6th, but he fell all the way to 9th, and he got picked up by the Washington Wizards. And there's a reason why Deni Avdija was so highly praised by NBA scouts, because he can really do a little bit of everything. He can shoot, his stroke is pretty good. It's definitely going to improve as he continues progressing in the league. He's probably one of the best playmakers inside of that draft class. He's a big combo wing type guard. He's a better defender than Luka Doncic, for example. He's an okay defender, and I think this is a really good pickup for the Washington Wizards. And then they signed Davis Bertans to that $18 million deal. And they got Robin Lopez for I think $8 million. And then the big move for the Washington Wizards. They traded John Wall, the franchise player, and a protected first-round pick for Russell Westbrook from the Houston Rockets. Right, so that basically sums up what the Washington Wizards did. Now I'm going to put my perspective into how I think their outlook will be for the upcoming 2020-2021 season. And to start off, I think they're going to be a great offensive team. Russell Westbrook, Bradley Beal, Thomas Bryant, Davis Bertans, even like Deni Avdija and Mo Wagner, these are all explosive offensive pieces. These are all players who can drop points pretty easily, making me believe that this is probably going to be, I wouldn't be surprised if they're a top 10 ranked offense next season. Russell Westbrook, you can say what you want about his game, but he's still one of the most explosive players inside of the NBA. Bradley Beal can play off ball, something Harden couldn't do. And Bradley Beal can literally drop 30 any night. He averaged 30 a game last year, and he's still that explosive off-ball, on-ball scorer. And then just taking a look at other role players that still provide a lot of offensive firepower, like Thomas Bryant. Thomas Bryant, you can say what you want about his defense. He's a good player. He's a good 3-level scorer who can do really anything on the court. Mo Wagner was a throwaway piece from the Los Angeles Lakers when they traded for Anthony Davis. He turned into a nice scorer. And then you have a guy like Troy Brown Jr. He's a solid offensive player, and even their rookie Ryo Hachimura, even though he does have some injury issues, he's a really good mid-range shooter. He's a good finisher. He's really good in the post. And this is just a collection of really solid offensive players, especially considering the fact that Russell Westbrook has a connection with head coach Scott Brooks. Scott Brooks, if you didn't know, was the head coach of OKC before he was ultimately fired for Billy Donovan. Russell Westbrook and Scott Brooks do have a pretty good connection, and that's going to help this team gel even further, increase the chemistry, and make that offense just look that much smoother. And then just kind of expanding on Russ, because of course he's going to be the focal point, or one of the focal points into their offense, is this is a pretty good shooting team. Probably one of the best shooting teams and playmaking teams that Russ has ever been on. And this starts with a guy named Davis Bertans. Davis Bertans, he's automatic from three. He shot like some crazy percentage last year. He was just heat checking people, and he's like 6'10". Like, it's insane. Like, imagine Russell Westbrook just dishing it off to Davis Bertans. He's just firing down threes. That's going to be deadly, right? And then beyond the shooting of Thomas Bryant, Bradley Beal, Mo Wagner, etc., also, this team has a lot of good playmaking outside of Russ. Like, if you look at the Houston Rockets, one of the big issues was they just had no playmakers outside of Russ and Harden. Harden just dribbles the ball 1,000 times, drives, or shoots. But Russell Westbrook, like, there were times in the playoffs where I saw Russ drive towards the lane. He would get doubled, then he would pass it to Eric Gordon, or he would pass it to PJ Tucker. And if PJ Tucker and Eric Gordon weren't open, if they were closed out, they just didn't know what to do. They couldn't create anything on the ball. So, well, time to just slow down, give the ball back to Harden or Russ, and try that again, right? That type of stagnant offense is not the most efficient way to run things, especially in the playoffs. But this is different. Now there's actually on-ball creators like Bradley Beal, and even a guy like Denny Avdia. I think Denny Avdia is going to be pretty good. A pretty good piece around Russell Westbrook. So now there's not just more offensive firepower, there's also more depth. There's also more, volume, I guess you can say, about how this offense is going to function. And that's just going to make it even more potent. Now, offense is only half the game. Now I have to talk about defense. And to put it bluntly, their defense is really trash. As I said at the start of this video, last year they ranked 29th in defense. And I don't think signing Robin Lopez is really going to fix their defensive problems. Like, they really have issues guarding people on all parts of the court, but especially in the paint. Like, Thomas Bryant is a terrible defender. Robin Lopez is backing him up. He's a pretty okay defender, but definitely not that defensive fix you're looking for. And especially considering the fact that in the East, there's a lot of dominant paint players. Joel Embiid, Giannis, Bam Adebayo. Like, those are dominant post players that the Wizards are going to have a hard time stopping. So that's probably their Achilles heel. The one thing that's going to hold them back is just how trash their defense is going to be. However, I think there is a world where their defense, not good, but it's going to be okay. Like, I think the Wizards' goal should be to just have their defense be middle of the pack. If their defense ends up like somewhere between, 13th to 17th, I would be really happy. And the reason why I think this is possible is for a couple of reasons. Number one is Russell Westbrook is not just a good wing defender. He brings energy and can inspire others to do the same. A big reason why Bradley Beal was such a horrific defender last year was because why would he play defense? What's the point? He has to save all of his energy for offense. He has to carry the offensive load, and he knows he's not playing for anything. Now you're with Russ. Now you're with Denny. Now you're with all these pieces. Russ is going to be the catalyst to bring energy to the court and inspire others to put effort. Because on defense, 90% of the battle is just trying. If you don't try on defense, you're not going to get anywhere. If you try on defense, you're going to be at least all right. And Russell Westbrook is going to help people try. And the people who he are trying to help out are already pretty decent defenders. Like, they bring in Denny, he's an alright defender. They bring in Robin Lopez, he helps. And moreover, on top of that, they still have the chance to make mid-season trades to shore up their defense. They have a lot of young pieces like Troy Brown Jr., those people, Robin Lopez, like those people can get moved ultimately to shore up their defense later in the season. We don't know what mid-season trades they're going to actually get, and that can be an impactful part of their defensive schemes moving forward. Now, what do I think their ceiling is? What do I think their floor is? And why, personally, I don't think you should overlook them. So their ceiling, to me, is a 6 seed. Like, their absolute ceiling. And I actually think their ceiling is to make it to the second round. I think they can actually pull off an upset. In like, absolute ceiling, of course. So the teams I would put above them are the Bucks, Celtics, Nets, 76ers, and Heat. And then now it's a question of, like, the Pacers, whatever, and the Wizards, right? So that's their ceiling. And then their floor to me is like a 10th seed. There's a chance this doesn't work. There's a chance Russ just doesn't fit in the modern NBA. Maybe their defense is just so horrific that for every 10 points they get, they give up 20 points. That's possible too. So it's possible that they'll get a 10 seed, but I really do think they're going to make the playoffs. So what's my expectation? Like I said over and over again, I love the Washington Wizards. I think people are really sleeping on them, and this is a team that I'm going to look very closely at. Like, I have a really good feeling about this team. I personally expect them to get like a 7th seed and be really competitive in the playoffs. And if they start gelling, this is a dark horse team to... Who knows, maybe they upset the 76ers. What if the 76ers start looking super dysfunctional and beat the 76ers? Or what if the Nets blow up? Or the I don't know. Like, do I think they're the favorites to get to the second round? Of course not. But it is possible. I do see a world where they are competitive in that first round and maybe pull off an upset because of all of the positives, all of the great parts of this roster that I was just talking about, like Russ, Bradley Beal, Mo Wagner, etc., etc., etc. So ultimately, those are my thoughts about the Washington Wizards. I think people are really sleeping on them. Comment down below what your thoughts personally are. Do you think my ceiling is too high? Is my floor too low? Where do you think the Washington Wizards are going to end up? And that's it for this video. Have a good day. Peace out.